Hello and welcome to Finextra TV. I'm Alex Lippic. You join us on UK FinTech Week here at IFGS 2024, and I'm delighted to be joined by Gurdeep Singh Kohli, who leads up Europe and Americas at Standard Chartered Ventures. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurdeep.
And good to be back.
Yeah, great to see you. So if we can start off with digital disruptors, which are continually making waves in UK FinTech. What, in your opinion, has had the biggest impact on business models, do you think?
I would say it's very difficult to pick one space. And I moved to the UK about 3 years ago, so I've been watching this space evolve.
Sure.
And I know this has been going on for a long time. But in hindsight, I would say it is encouraging to see that the UK FinTech has grown across the breadth of themes. Obviously, some areas like the challenger bank, neobanks, get a lot more attention than the rest. But across payments, across banking as a service, across digital assets, and in fact, even I would say SMEs and lending space, UK FinTech has seen the breadth grow in the last few years now, which has been very encouraging. Now, when we talk about what has led to this growth and what has driven this growth, I would say you have to give credit to the regulatory environment. That has been a very big factor of this growth, and also the funding environment. Obviously, the funding environment has been challenging for the last couple of years now, but a lot of this growth has only been possible because of the funding environment available in the UK. The interesting thing about the UK FinTech space is that the players have picked up a niche area where they have excelled. Now, whether it is related to payments, or whether it is related to remittance, or whether it is related to, I would say, business banking, they have actually picked up a niche, and which is why they are doing very well. Even though they may look similar, they're actually very, very different. And if you talk about impact, what has been the impact? I would say the biggest impact on the business has been the client experience. Now, when I came in, I saw that some of the traditional banks, the client experience itself was struggling, and I could see the reason why the challenger banks have grown significantly, because the client experience was not really good, which is what the challenger banks have gone after. They have definitely catered to the missing middle, which is the SME space, and the financing which was not available to these areas. And that is the other thing, which is there's a gap in the client need, and they have gone after that client need. And finally, it has been a bit of a wake-up call, because the traditional banks have also started to invest heavily in the digital banking capabilities. And I would say whoever taps into the regulatory environment, whether it is open banking or whether it is the digital asset space, they are the ones who are going to be the winners.
Sure. Touched on some really interesting points there. Of course, the importance of client experiences and funding. So I know this is a topic you'll be touching on a little bit later. How can organizations respond through experimentation and entrepreneurship? And do you have any success stories you could perhaps share with us, Gurdeep?
Very happy to. In fact, SC Ventures, the themes I just talked about earlier, it's interesting that the SC Ventures portfolio spans across these themes, which is online economy lifestyle, digital assets, sustainability and inclusion, and SMEs and world trade. So it's interesting that our themes actually kind of mirror the global FinTech theme in some way. From a culture of experimentation and entrepreneurship, that is one of the core mandate for SC Ventures since it was set up 5 years ago. What do I mean by that? We have a very strong entrepreneurship program, we have an innovation bridge, and we also have a very strong venture building capability. Entrepreneurship at its heart, it's about providing a platform to your teams and to your organization where people can come up with ideas to solve client problems and business problems. And they don't do it in silo, and it is not about looking inward, it's about looking outward and plugging in to the ecosystem externally. And that's what the SC Ventures platform does. We look at business problems, we look at client problems, and we come up with ideas. We enable the people with skills and with funding to say, if you have an idea, and we are here to tap into the entrepreneur in each and every individual, one entrepreneur at a time. And that's what SC Ventures has been doing. As a result of that, we have about 15 business ventures which we have launched in the last 5 years. And many of the founding members of these ventures have come from within, the bank. And not just in one market, across 7 to 8 markets now. You may name it: Singapore, Hong Kong, India, Africa, UK, UAE.
Global, yeah.
That's what we have been doing across this. I think you had a second part to your question, which is what can organizations learn?
Yeah, how can they kind of respond through, as you said, experimentation, entrepreneurship? And you mentioned some success stories, but yeah, how can they respond, do you think?
I would say any organization which is serious about creating a culture of experimentation and innovation needs to start with the why. Most organizations are not very sharp about why do you want to do this and what's the end game. What do I mean by that is we were very clear that SC Ventures' mission is rewiring the DNA in banking and also making sure we have top-down endorsement to drive cultural change across the organization. If you have these ingredients, then it makes it easier for you to support your staff, support your team around the culture of experimentation. Some of the ingredients required are very fundamental. One is that you absolutely need to back up your people. It is not just a theater where you create a dragon's den, reward people for great ideas, but don't follow them through.
Sure.
Following through with these ideas requires funding, and that requires creating capacity for resources. So you absolutely need that. And I would say the second ingredient is making sure that getting started is not that difficult. Large organizations will struggle because they're complex.
Yeah.
But if you want people to get on the path of innovation and experimentation, then you have to make getting the takeoff needs to be easier. And the last bit I would say, the word experimentation by default means risks. You have to accept and have an appetite for failures. If you do not have the appetite for experimenting, failing, pivoting, well, you cannot create a culture of experimentation and innovation is what I would say.
I think that leads me nicely on to my final question, really. Like you say, every business, every organization, faces its risks as well as its opportunities, its challenges as well. What do you identify as the core risks and opportunities, with these new technologies that you've mentioned?
Let me start with the positive, which is let me start with the opportunities. I spoke a lot about how the UK FinTech growth has been encouraging, and having the benefit of the exposure across different markets, which I talked about, I would still say there is a lot more room to go. If I was to ask for one thing which is kind of missing right now in our environment in the UK FinTech, it's the scale, and I would say the degree of experimentation is not yet coming out. It is still largely focused on client experience, making what exists better.
Sure.
But I'm yet to see real innovation come out, which I'm expecting from this market. Opportunities wise, tremendous opportunities across digital assets and tokenization. There are enough yet to do. I'm not talking about crypto only, I'm talking about digital assets. There is enough room for experimentation and innovation in that space. Obviously, we have the CBDCs, which is the government is backing them up, which is also very good.
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons why we relocated our ventures, Zodia Custody, Zodia Markets, and housed them in this region. Favorite word for people is generative AI, and I am a believer that it is yet to be proven, meaning people talk about the theme, but you have to anchor on the application of the theme rather than the theme itself. Technology itself is not a threat. It is the application of the technology to a business model.
Yeah.
You can either solve a problem with the technology or you can create a problem with the technology.
Sure, yeah.
And that's what people need to be mindful of. Otherwise, you have to create that room for experimentation. I would close by saying, how do you prepare for that? From an SC Ventures perspective, you have to be mindful that if you are creating organizational or institutional grade ventures, which have institutional grade security and institutional grade governance, that is one way to mitigate, not remove the risk, that is one way to mitigate the risks which these technology poses. And that's what we have been doing with all our ventures, which is governance, risk and security. You have to create that environment, and that is why you are setting them up for long-term success, not the short-term success.
Sure. Really interesting insights, and hopefully you'll be getting some inspiring inspirations and innovations from this event as well at IFGS, celebrating 10 years, of course. Thank you ever so much for your time. I know it's been getting busier and louder, the event, as we've been speaking, and you've got a lot to be getting on with, so I'll let you get on with that, but thank you for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gurdeep. Thank you.